Hello, my lovely friends. This is a response to Terry's clip on minimalism, and then he made a joke. He says, "Well, what about going the other way?" And so basically, the idea of accumulating to accumulate is kind of interesting because what's interesting is you can accumulate, and he was kind of making a joke about that, but it is kind of an absurd thing. However, nobody knows what's right for you, and as far as what the right balance is, and that changes based on whether you have kids or not. When I bought this house, it was kind of interesting because it was from a family of four, and they had two kids, and they had a lot of baby toys in the basement. I was like, there would be things that I would never have, unless I, obviously had babies or anything like that. But if you have kids, then you're going to have material items that are associated with having those kids. So it's all unique. So when people say, well, I want to be a minimalist, and you have a lot of people on YouTube that are minimalists and their families, everybody has their sort of carbon footprint, don't they? So everybody has something that they need or value, or many things or a few things, and that changes throughout their lifetime. So there will be cycles of where you're accumulating and then cycles where you're giving away, or something that you really valued and then you might not value it as much and you think somebody else could value it. There may be things that you value and you still give away because you can see that somebody else will benefit from that. I actually had a situation recently where a student had a house fire, and what was interesting about that was, it was a very personal situation that she had. She shared it with the class. And so obviously, I wanted everybody to support her, and, obviously we're not trying to, we want to maintain confidentiality and privacy and yet provide support as best as we can. So the voice inside me said, hey, ask her if she's a guitar player. I already knew the answer. Good kind of sense. And she was. Her and her husband were guitar players. She said a few people in the family were. So I sent her a guitar. It was nothing, expected, and I put it on behalf of the class. It's from behalf of the class. And it felt so good. And it was interesting because when I went to the post office, the lady was kind of blown away because she wanted to know the story. And then another person wanted to know the story. And so there was a ripple effect in that good deed. Now, I hope it is, it'll be interesting to see, how it is over time, the guitar, in the household. But it was more of it was kind of interesting because the guitar needed a little bit of TLC. And it was great, though, otherwise. And it was kind of like with her rebuilding process. It was kind of interesting. And what was important about that was it felt so good. And I thought that I was going to trade the guitar earlier, but I knew that guitar was, then when this situation came up, was meant for her. There was a minister at a church who had a guitar and was wanting to trade. And then he wanted to keep that guitar, and I was thinking of giving him that guitar. Because I said, well, he's going to do God's work with it. So I thought that was wow. And then I was going to have him come over and give him some more things for the church. And what ended up happening was that email didn't send. The follow-up email didn't send to him. So when he changed his mind and things, and then I was going to send it, and then that email never sent. And this thing happened, and I knew, okay, the voice inside guided me, and I realized, okay, that's for her. And so what's interesting is you just kind of feel, it feels so good. So what I am saying is a lot of times people go minimalist and they don't give that consideration for slimming down and connecting it to other people. A lot of people do. I know one guy who gave away all his furniture to the homeless. Now, it's not a comparison or who's doing what, yet people often have all these videos on minimalism on YouTube and they don't connect their giving with any act to, like, the homeless or Goodwill or anything like that. See, if you can do that, if it's possible, or if you can't give your material items, then give of your time or give of your money or resources and create that abundance. It'll come back manyfold. I've noticed that even with the way you fill your day, that if you create a vacuum, there will be something that'll come in to fill it, and it's the same thing with the material things. So now if you don't want to accumulate materially, you don't have to. Yet it's just so, it felt so good when you know that you can make a difference. When you know that I am going to connect my materialism path or minimalism path in service to others. So either way that you go, there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, at the end of your life, you're not going to take anything with you, right? In this incarnation, you're going to leave it behind for others or whoever, or society or whatever you want to say. So it's kind of interesting. So if you're not going to take it anyway, and you have the choice of how you want to live your life and the quality of life and your experience, what is the best way for you to do that? I mean, it's not going to be the same for one person and another. If you want to go totally minimalist and you're a painter, and then you don't have paintbrushes and your canvas, then what? You can paint in your mind, of course. Or if you're a golfer and you don't have your golf clubs, then what? So I think, again, the tools, I hit on this in another video clip on minimalism, that the idea that you have to have enough for your craft. And it is interesting, I've seen these people go through it, these artists, or they'll get caught up in life, and I know I've been there, where you'll kind of cycle through, or you might start with one thing, or then you have another. Or how many of you know you don't have your first car, right? Maybe some people do, but they oftentimes sell their car, and then they don't have a car for a period of time, and then I got to have another car. I've had that happen to me, and different situations where I've lived my life differently. So your lifestyle changes, and then the material items that you have in your life change. So it's kind of interesting because I think people are asking the question about minimalism and materialism and all these things based on whether they don't have something or do have something or think they want something or think they need to be doing something along those lines. And you kind of see that you really don't need a lot, right? You don't need a lot. Yet you can enjoy the ride while you're here. And are you willing to work for it? There are a lot of added expenses. Things need to be insured. You realize that, are you overly attached? I mean, again, objects in and of themselves are not harmful at all. I mean, it's if you're overly attached, and that might be unhealthy, right? I mean, but if somebody loves video games, they need a video game system, right? Or they can go to an arcade and play video games. We need clothes, right, to wear and go out in public. You're not going to walk around nude and go to the restaurant. There are things that you have to have for your craft, for your way of being, the way that you're carrying yourself in the world, for your hobbies, your interests, sharing with others. So it's kind of, and things that reflect you in your environment, in your space. And I think it is interesting because, trust me on this, I've had the college kind of experience where I've had the poster boards and the framed artwork, and that worked for me back then. But then you start changing, or your taste might shift a little bit, and you might say, what about this, or I want to try that. So what's fun about materialism and trying to experiment, is you get to find, I think I might try that, or I like to try that. And I know for myself, I got interested in mosaics, oil painting, and then just kind of, let me just try to shift and see what I like, or let me try that over here. It doesn't have to be very expensive or anything. It's just, why don't you try that? And it's fun because it gives you something your material objects can help to reflect your personality. And it gets a bad rap oftentimes. But if you realize that you can benefit many people with it, enjoy your ride while you're here, and then just really understand that you're not overly attached to them, but that they're a vehicle. They're a way of helping you to carry yourself in the world personally, professionally, socially, in any number of ways, and that you can cycle through material items based on your needs, then you don't get overly, and it's okay, it's overly attached. And I'm kind of reminded of an example many years ago. My father had all these 70s suits. Oh my goodness, and I loved them. And I even wore some of them in high school. Like we had disco day and other things. And they fit, it's like the flappy collars, and I just loved it. And what was interesting is, then my stepmom, when she moved into the house, well, she cleared the closet because to her it was all junk, and she needed to make room too, and they needed to put new things there. And I came back one day, it was all gone. And I remember thinking, oh no. And the point was, it's interesting because something could be, at one time in the 70s, or there was a period he must have worn all those shirts and suits, but he wasn't at that time, right? And this is the early 2000s, as you know, and this actually the other decade prior, right? And you kind of realize, okay, at one time it had some value for them, but maybe not at another time. And it was interesting because for me, it did have value, and I was disappointed that they were gone. And so it's kind of interesting because, again, this goes back to that idea, well, you might use something at one time and you might think the world of it, or all these items, but then at another point you might not. You might not have any need. I actually know another situation where how are you doing, baby? Look at this. Isn't this better than material items? But they do require food, right? And leashes and all these things. But so there's a little bit of materialism involved. But what's interesting is that I knew, as I mentioned in another video, there was a supervisor that I had at a university. She gave away everything and moved to India. And I think she worked on getting her papers there to stay over there. But she was going on a spiritual pilgrimage, and she just gave away all her material items. So there are some people that kind of, they're done with a particular lifestyle, or it doesn't mean that that phase didn't work at all, but then they want to go the total, is almost aesthetic route a little bit, and just kind of be an aesthetic. It's just kind of essentially give away everything and just almost live a monastical life, or almost like a nun, it almost seems, or just to enhance their spiritual path as they see fit. So again, it's just not, go within yourself and ask yourself what feels right. It's, other people are going to have their different opinions. Some people might be overly materialistic in terms of wanting to live that lifestyle. Other people might be going the other way. And it's just, some people I know are not comfortable with any material things, and I know people that are comfortable with other material things and that they like and enjoy. It's kind of interesting, and it's something that you have to think about for yourself. And nobody's going to give you the right answer. I will caution you, though, that for your job, for your position, you will need things that enhance your professional appearance. You want to have things that kind of show your seriousness about a situation. And I'll give you a quick example. I have somebody working, a guitar builder, working on, putting in pickups, and I have a couple bodies that I'm working on, and he's going to put these little electric guitars together. And when I went over to his house, he's really a great guy and really nice. I didn't see even the soldering gun. And he said it was in a drawer, and it was just the idea of, he has that professionalism, but the environment, I felt, didn't show that immediately as you walked in. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that he's not. But if you're going to be convincing, and you're going to convince people of your craft or whatever it is that you're doing, then you also want to make sure. I think that's where materialism does reflect, okay, this is how I'm able to reflect my professionalism. So if you can find ways to enhance your profile, your professional profile materially, that is important. That is really, really important. And if you're not able to do that, then let's say you're a musician, and it's like in my case, I'm going to go to a recording studio to do the recordings, okay? So those kinds of things are important. Let somebody else who has the material items and that, or know what they're doing, handle the situations. So I think that that can help you to gauge. That's a way that materialism can be used. And then that if somebody's too minimalist and they're offering a product or service, then are they scaling back on anything? You don't want to question their professionalism, and I'm not saying that any of you will. It's just that it's something you do want to think about, that it's not all bad. If you find a balance, you find a way to give what you have materially, you find a way to kind of assess people's professionalism based on, their material roles that are needed for their craft. If you're a student, you're going to have a computer, notepad, and a pen, right? There are going to be things that are needed in your craft, and as long as you keep all these points in mind, what are you really worried about? And also you keep in mind that you're going to cycle based on your life stage. What you need at any particular moment, what you have at 19 is not going to be the same thing you need at 39. Maybe it will, maybe it won't be. You just kind of change and you're not so attached, and you can give things away, accumulate them again. There are different things that you have, and just kind of, if you have this kind of mentality of, if I buy this and I never give it away, that might help you too to assess whether you want to buy something. You can try different tests with yourself. You can try the 30-day test also. Write down in a notepad, when do I want to buy this, and see how you reflect. If it's not an immediate type of thing that you need, then 30 days later, how are you with it? So anyway, those are some helpful hints, and those are just some thoughts in response to Terry's post, to my original post that you see there. And Terry, thank you very much, and I'll talk to you later, guys.